means so far? He's awesome. It's been a lot of fun. Just ever since he's come in, I think our communication is so important to just the way the offense goes. And he's a guy that's been in the system before, so I leaned on him a lot, especially early on. But even now, like just our meetings throughout the week, stuff we talk about, just preparing for, the game, whether it's the run game stuff or protection, we're really in sync. And I think that shows in how we communicate and operate as far as, a unit up front, whether it's run game or protection stuff. I think we've been done a solid job with all that stuff. So, he leads the charge up there. He does a great job, and guy that just does things the right way. Comes to work every day, works hard, makes sure that room is all communicating. I think he's done a good job of leading the room and just making sure that they're all on the same page. And if there's any, things that are unclear with the plan, he's always a guy that voices it and, gets answers. He's done a really great job for us.
You said that it probably took about a month, 4 weeks before the Tampa offense last year really kind of got rolling. How close do you think you guys are to kind of hitting that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're close. There's some things that we've needed to clean up the first 3 weeks that we haven't yet. So, I'd love to see us just clean up some of that stuff. That just the penalties, shooting ourselves in the foot, all those things that should be easy to clean up. We got to go and correct that first and foremost. I think some of the stuff from last week obviously didn't have our best week offensively. I think before that game, we did some things. We were explosive. We had some, we had some good things going. I just think last week we obviously struggled a little bit. So it's just about how we respond from that. You're going to play really good defenses in this league. You're not always going to play your best as an offense, but it's how do you respond and find a way this week against another good opponent to go out there and play better offensively and just be more consistent, better on third down. Obviously the penalties, throwing, catching, the passing game, we gotta clean up and we got to be sharper, and then make the corrections in the running game and move on. But I think that's the key, is just getting better every week. It's a new set of challenges, but I don't really know if, timeline wise, like what that looks like. It's just continuing to get better and to evolve and to sharpen our our offense.
How do you feel about your progression in it? Maybe not necessarily just like the knowledge of it, but operating.
Yeah, I feel really good operating it. I think every week it's growing a little bit more and more. I think I'm seeing it really clearly. I feel like when I step on the field on Sundays, I have a really great grasp of what we're doing, what we're trying to get done, what I'm looking for, all my keys that I'm locked into. I think I'm seeing everything great. I think I just got to eliminate some of the bad plays. Obviously, I've had one or two a game that are hurting us as far as turnovers go. So I got to find a way to eliminate those, and I think it's just continuing just to play smart ball. And obviously, I'm going to take the shots when they're there, but not trying to force anything and just continuing to trust the system and to progress. Just had a couple of those plays I definitely want back. But as far as seeing it and operating, I feel good. Like I said, we got to clean up some of the operation stuff offensively, just like some of the legal shifts, motions, and those things. But as far as what play we're in, what we're getting to, what I'm seeing, what I'm checking to, I feel really sharp with that. But I think there's still a lot of growth for myself and our whole offense just to continue to get better.
We have talked about the need to be patient against a defense like the 49ers. What makes that so tough as a quarterback?
I think it's just, they're a pretty simple scheme. They're not trying to really trick anyone, but they've always had a good defense, and this scheme has always been really good and tough to play against because they are so consistent and they're really disciplined. They play most things top down. They fly around sideline to sideline as far as just the D-line and the linebackers. So they make a lot of plays with that front group there. And then on the back end, I think they're really disciplined. They're really smart. So it's just we'll have some opportunities down the field, but it's really taking that profit every time and being able to check the ball down. And they've made, they've played really well with that scheme of just banking that you're not just going to, take the small gains all the way down the field and put together a 9, 10, 12 play drive and go score. And they're also really good at taking the ball away. So when you do put the ball in harm's way, whether it's a throw or just carrying the ball, they're really good at punching, causing fumbles, all those things. So you can tell it's a really well-coached group. They fly around. So they do a good job.
Trevor, the illegal shifts, how much of do you think is newer offense versus younger players, maybe inexperienced players, versus emphasis from the league on that?
That's a good question. I think it's all three of those. I think there's stuff that's definitely being emphasized that even in my career, like not even that long ago, that wasn't always called. I mean, but at the end of the day, it's still a penalty. So we have to be sharper in making sure that they're just really looking for that stuff more. And we know that, we've known this since the offseason, and they give you a heads up on what they're looking for. And so it's no excuse. We still got to be sharper. And then I think it's also, like you said, the new system. In the game, sometimes things get sped up. You might get behind the play clock and you're breaking the huddle quick, and there's a lot of tags in the formations. And we just have to know the plan to where there's no hesitation. We know exactly where we're going, and you don't have to think about it, because there's a lot of little details in our game plans that are important. But if you miss a word or if you miss something, it could end up having 2 guys on the ball, 2 guys off the ball, whatever it is, which is going to get a flag. So and then a lot of motions that we got to be on point with, guys getting set, and that starts with me as a quarterback, making sure that everybody's set before you send a motion. Guys have an urgency getting set on the first motion, so we're not having 2 guys moving. There's just a lot that goes into it, and that we can clean up, and it's a lot of focus on our end where we have to be sharper.
Is it harder to clean it up on the road, or is it? It's also, is it how much more incrementally important is it to eliminate those mistakes on the road also?
It's important no matter where you're at. Just the penalties, they add up, and I think obviously it's important on the road just because you can't hear, the communication is a little bit different. So I think it's just even more focus on the plan and knowing exactly what to do, just because there is a little bit less verbal communication on the road because it gets loud. So really locked into all that stuff and making sure that guys are set and ready to go, and making sure we get out of the huddle quick enough to get the noise gets on you. Got to get it up there with enough time to operate and for guys to move around and adjust.
Have you kept in touch with McCorkle?
McCorkle, that got me for a second. I have. I was texting him, obviously, when he started, I guess week 2 it was. I texted him, told him, just told him good luck and whatever. So I've talked to him a little bit. Happy for, how he's been playing, and who knows, maybe we'll get another Max sighting this week. I'm not sure with, Brock's status and all that, but Mac's a great guy, and happy for him.
And Brock, you also familiar with, and what do you think of his game from one quarterback to another?
Yeah, I know Brock, wouldn't say we're super tight, but fairly well, just crossed paths a little bit. He's been in Jacksonville some, and we've kept in touch, and I have a lot of respect for just who he is as a person. I think he's awesome, and he's a great player too. He's a guy that just makes plays. He's really good, throws with anticipation, can put the ball wherever he wants to, is really good at creating off schedule. I really love the way he plays. I think he's a playmaker, and we'll see if he's back Sunday.
And Anton have talked about Anton getting challenged and him rising to that challenge. What kind of growth and strides have you seen out of Anton Harrison this offseason and now into the regular season?
Yeah, he's been a guy that just has really embraced he's, like you said, he was challenged from day one with not only Liam, just the whole staff and the system, and we asked a lot of him, and it was cool to see him just respond throughout the offseason and to see the attitude he brought to work every day, and just that growth mindset of wanting to get better. He really pushed himself, and I think you're seeing obviously his play speak for that. And he's played really well his whole career and has a ton of talent, and to see him really apply himself and just to he's been working his tail off really all off season and all season. So I'm proud of him and glad he's up there blocking for me. That's for sure.
How much fun is it to watch Travis make the play he made the other day, and how much more is left out there to get him in those kind of situations?
Yeah, man, he's just special with the ball in his hand. So finding those opportunities, we got to continue to do that, because you've seen the plays that he can make. And I missed him on one earlier in the game where I should have hit him going across the field. So that was an opportunity, but just to keep finding ways to get him involved. We have a lot of guys that are dynamic with the ball, but he's for sure one of those, and we got to continue to find ways to do that, because he's a weapon with it.
What's the challenge for you with Hunter, just since he's on defense, and when you guys come off the field, how do you communicate and sort of get those little adjustments?
Yeah, it's I try to grab him as soon as I can, between series and all stuff, because if he's going to defense, obviously he's not going to be over there. So just trying to grab him right off the field as soon as I can. Game day's a little bit tougher. Sometimes I got to find him a little bit after the fact, just because I know he's running around trying to make sure he's not going in on defense. So the communication's been good, though. He's been really receptive. He's been around, looking at pictures or whatever on the
How encouraged are you just with the build? This is a first-year staff, and you guys are getting ready to play as a 2-1 team against a 3-0 team that the league's going to pay attention to this one.
How impressed am I with that? Yeah, encouraged. Yeah. I mean, it's where we're at in our season right now. We're 2-1. It doesn't really mean anything, to be honest. I'm happy that, obviously not happy that we lost that second game of the year, but as far as the wins we've been able to get and to be where we're at, I think is a positive, but it's just we're 3 games in. We got a long season ahead of us, so I think the test for us is just consistency over a long period of time, and to continue to bring that edge every week. I think that's something that has stood out to me, just being on the team, but I'm sure the outside looking in is just the way that we play, the enthusiasm, the flying around, the physicalness of our whole team, physicality. I mean, it's been fun to be a part of, and I think it's definitely a culture that's building, and we just got to continue to put the work in and earn it every week. Thank you all.